Hello again, everybody. Now, in this lecture, we're going to talk about two important things. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is the competition, because often students ask me, how can I find, or wouldn't it be great, would it be a good idea if I could find something where the competition was very, very low or there was no competition? Well, here's the thing. Everything is competitive. If it's not competitive, it is absolutely not worth selling because the demand is not there. So a high demand means high competition. A low demand means low competition. Which is easier? Well, in fact, it's easier to go with something that has high competition but a very high demand, because it's easier to take your share of something that's already popular than to try and capture a market with low demand. You need a much more of the market share with low demand and low competition. If something's low competition, there's a good reason for it. All right, you can never be first. Now, you'll never be first unless you happen to invent something. You will never be first to market, and you will be very unlikely to get in early as well with something that is then going to become very popular and very high demand. Trying to find something like that will take up all of your time. You'll end up never getting started. So I don't worry about competition anymore. I now embrace competition because I know that that means there's a big demand for this particular niche or particular type of product. So really, it is good to enter a competitive niche. The rewards can be very big because you only need a very small share of the marketplace. Now, if you follow this course, in the later sections of the course, where we start setting up our store, and all the things that we do throughout the course to make the store stand out and to make what we do different. And you're going to find in this course that we're going to be focusing quite a bit on how to approach our market, our audience, from a completely different angle. And this is how you can actually compete in competitive niches. Now, there is one caveat to that. There are certain products that you wouldn't want to sell because they are dominated by a few really giant brands. Now, examples would be your cell phones, your mobile phones. I mean, that's dominated by Apple and Samsung. Your laptops and computers, you've got Dell, HP, and a couple of others. TVs, LG and Sony, etc. And then things like perfumes and fragrances that are dominated by a few enormous brands that, they really have pretty much the monopoly, especially with your cell phones and laptops, computers and TVs. So unless you were selling those actual name brand items, you wouldn't want to go into those niches. Drop shipping, it's very unlikely that you would be able to sell these name brands and still make a profit. All right, so that's competition. But now we're going to get into something that's even more important. I want you to stop thinking like this. So, like what, you might be thinking? Like you only have one chance to make it work. And I decided to cover this based on all the feedback that I have had from students since I released the first version of this course in 2015. It's a very common way of thinking to think that what you decide to do and the niche you decide to be in, the style of your store, what's on your store, the products that are in your store, the products you decide to sell, it is a big mistake to think along the lines that this is it, that this is going to be your niche, the products you sell, and whatever happens, you've got to make this work. That is absolutely the wrong way to look at things. You have as many chances as you want, especially with drop shipping, because remember, you haven't got any stock to buy. So you can change things anytime you want to change them. So this means that you don't need to limit yourself because you've got no stock to buy. And here's what successful e-com store owners do, even if they're not drop shipping, but it's easier to do, much easier to do when you're drop shipping. Test stuff and then test some more. So what can you test? You can test different audiences, different niches, different sub-niches, different products. You can test all of these things. Now, when you set up your store for the first time you do it, it's going to take a little while because it's a new thing. You've never done it before. But with the e-commerce store building platform we're going to be using here in this course, once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to switch out a whole store in a day. Change everything. Change the colors, change the product line, change the whole lot in a day. In fact, even less time than that. I've switched out a whole store in a few hours. So I've changed everything. I've changed the colors, I've changed all the categories, I've changed the logo, I've changed the header, I've changed everything and the products as well in the space of a few hours. Because some things will work and some won't. That's the way it is. And that's the way you need to look at it. You try different things, you test different things, and then you run with the winners and you drop the losers. And you do that over and over until you get to where you want to be, whatever your personal goals are as far as your income is concerned. And you can do it all with just one store. You don't need multiple stores. You can do it with just one. Now later on in the course, when we look at scaling up, we will be looking at different options of having, more than one store. But it absolutely isn't necessary because you can get to where you want to be with just one store, providing that you think the right way. So just take on board what we've covered here now over the last few minutes about testing stuff. And some things will work and some things won't work. You just test and you find the things that do work, you run with them, you drop the things that don't work, and then you do it all over again. All right, let's move on to the next lecture.